G'day guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Wildkard. Thank you for watching the Wildkard Rugby Show. And yes, we are looking at the last few years of Rugby Australia. The union has reported another $9.2 million loss in 2023 in a Rugby World Cup year. Yeah, and the union has come out and stated that they invested $11.5 million during the Rugby World Cup. Now, in case you're wondering what kind of investment you can do in France at the Rugby World Cup, this investment included flying the wives and girlfriends of the Wallabies out, staying at 5-star hotels. Whilst the Wallaroos, the girls who actually makes money for Rugby Australia, gets to fly in economy to Canada, right? So that's the sort of investment Rugby Australia wasted on the $11.5 million. And there's also included $2.6 million of overspending that was unapproved, meaning someone stole the money and it is called embezzlement. Theft or misappropriation of funds placed in one's trust or belonging to one's employer. If you swipe the credit card without the company credit card without your boss's approval, that is embezzlement, that is stealing, and that had occurred for $2.6 million as well for Rugby Australia. Now, so that has totaled Rugby Australia's debt to $89 million in 2023. They have a deal where they can take money out of this company called Pacific Equity Partners, basically borrow money out of them of $80 million, like essentially like overdraft. They can just take the money out whenever they need it. They've already taken out $50 million out of that, and that deal, that $50 million, they have to pay back on the interest of 10.62%, which means they are owing $5 million of interest per year on the $50 million they've drawn out of this equity partner deal so far. Yeah, $5 million years of interest. But according to their own internal estimations, that they're going to be, by the end of Rugby World Cup in 2027, they're going to be generating up to $225 million in cash flow. And this is the money that they kind of use as the backup to get the loan essentially for the $50 million, $80 million, draft, and $50 million being drawn out. So they are backing that this money is going to come in for the Rugby World Cup to keep themselves afloat. Now, this also obviously includes the Lions tour. So I did a little bit of research on how much money that the companies, the unions actually get from the Lions tour. So New Zealand Rugby got about $33 million of profit from the Lions tour in 2017. And Rugby Australia got about $35 million for the Lions tour in 2013. Yes, in 2013. So that means the Lions tour is probably going to generate, $40 million, maybe $50 million. And then the remainder, $175 million also, has to all come from the Rugby World Cup. And according to the England Rugby World Cup in 2015, they did generate, 102 million pounds, which is about $200 million of revenue. And, England does have a bigger rugby base. So that could be a similar number Australian rugby is going to make. So, yeah, so it is feasible they're going to make $225 million in cash flows. But, it is going to be, the way that they're spending the money, it's going to be, it's still very concerning how they're going to be able to recover from that after the Rugby World Cup in 2027, how long this is going to last. Now, the sinking ship continues to leak water. Carter Gordon has reported now has met with the Gold Coast Titans for a potential code switch to Rugby League at $700,000 a year. Rugby Australia has opened up a war between Rugby League and Rugby Union. Now Rugby League, I'm pretty sure they have a salary cap, but the salary cap is exempt for Rugby Union players. So a lot of teams are looking at bringing Union players to play Rugby League above and beyond their current salary cap, which is a huge advantage for a team because you can get somebody in for free, essentially. It really bolsters your performance and at no cost. And it's something that Rugby League has introduced as a response to the Joseph Suaalii deal. Rugby Australia bragged all about that one. Oh boy, can't wait for that disaster to occur next year. But yeah, so that is not looking good. I really hope Rugby Australia do something to keep Carter Gordon. He is currently the top performer in Rugby Australia right now, and as a fly half, and he's the only fly half can make a tackle in 2024. And the Joe Schmidt has responded to this. The Wallabies coach, he reckons that he really wants Carter Gordon to stay, but he reckons that there are a number of number 10s. I mean, Tom Liner, Ben Donaldson, Nola Seal, none of these guys can actually make tackles, Joe. So as optimistic as Joe is, I just don't agree that any of these players are on the same level as Carter Gordon right now, to be really frank. And I think that he is going to be losing the top fly half if he goes. Joe Schmidt is downplaying it a little bit. I mean, he's probably trying to play the game and try to get Carter Gordon to stick around. But yeah, it's a pretty big loss. Another huge loss in the inside center position is under Paisami. He's being talked about going to the Exeter Chiefs in the Gallagher's Premiership as well. So he's going to be potentially be involved in a bidding war for that with Rugby Australia as well. Yeah. So Joe Schmidt has, had an interview last week. He talked about his long-term plans for the Wallabies, and one of the plans he talked about is apparently not the Bledisloe Cup, and I was very disappointed to hear this. I mean, Joe Schmidt, it's... I mean, he talks about building towards the Lions tour, but I really don't think that you can just take the Bledisloe Cup, a great opportunity to hone your skills for your players, for your team, and say that it's not your focus. Because if you say that, you're already taking a huge learning. Like, for example, right? If I tell you that you're gonna be playing a game of rugby for fun, and then if I tell you you're gonna play a game of rugby for selections, you're gonna play at different levels, right? And by telling you that you're gonna be playing for selections, you're gonna play harder, and in the end, even if you don't make the selections, just the fact that you play harder, you would have got a better, you would have learned a lot more and developed a lot more as a player than just playing a match that doesn't mean anything. And that's what I think Joe Schmidt's making a massive mistake here, because if he's just telling the players this game doesn't matter, or yeah, maybe it matters, but it's not really what we're aiming for, I just think that the players are actually missing out a great opportunity to further their skills at the Bledisloe Cup by taking that pressure off them prior to the match. So I really didn't like the way that he put it, but we'll see how he goes. So he's talking about that there's a lot of players available. He wants to stick to selecting local players, because I think that's probably just one of he wants. That's probably he wants to do that for the best of Australian rugby locally. But yeah, he's talking about having players mostly locally grown. But I'm actually indifferent to whether he brings in overseas players or not. Well, which I think is fine if locally or international. But his main argument for that is that the local players have better cohesion and combination when it comes to playing in for the Wallabies. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think, it is really not the best interview if you're a Wallabies fan looking at some of the stuff you talked about. For me, I think that it's, putting pressure on the players, telling them that we're only going to select from domestic competition. Again, you're just taking the pressure off the players. Now they're looking at each other like, hey, there's only 5 people that could possibly contest for my jersey at the Wallabies because there's only 5 teams in Australia. It really makes that the players' efforts, it really makes that that competition a lot less meaningful for the players, and ultimately it's not going to translate into better performance at the Wallabies. I really think that what he should do is say we're going to open up selections from all international players, but just behind the scenes prioritizing selecting players domestically to try to keep everyone motivated, but try to make a clear statement, unofficially, obviously, to try to give more opportunity to locally based players. I think that's probably a better way to go about it. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. Yeah, he's already talked about Carter Gordon. And anyway, let's move on to a little bit of a better news. The the dream team is coming together in America. So Matt Giddo is returning to San Diego Legion, as we reported a while ago, and he will be making his debut alongside Mai Anonu this weekend. in Major League Rugby. So that is going to be pretty epic to have the two legends on the field at the same time. And anyway, moving on. So yeah, there was a bit of an incident on the weekend where Billy Vunipola was in Spain, and apparently there was a bit of an altercation where he like threw some bottles and some stuff at the at a security guard, and it turned, his word is that there was a misunderstanding. He didn't really, he didn't really threaten anybody. There was no violence, and but there was different reports that he threw a bottle and chair at a security staff. But in the end, he was caught with a 240-pound fine, and his team, the Saracens, has issued a statement that he's going to be cleared and good to go, and there was no punishment for him at his rugby team. Now, moving on to Super Rugby now this weekend. Got a few big games coming up. The Hurricanes versus the Waratahs on Friday. Rebels versus Blue on Friday night. Moana Pacifica versus Highlanders. This will be the first game played in Tonga for the Moana Pacifica team, and there will be a really, really good opportunity for them to put out an upset as well over the Highlanders. So, and if this goes really well, they're gonna have more games in Tonga, or maybe even in Samoa, and that'll be really, really good for the Islander rugby, development for the local games there. The Crusaders gonna be playing against the Reds. This is a massive game for both sides. Some big changes for the Crusaders team. They have put Lee Halfpenny is back from injury at fullback, which means Johnny McNichol, who has been the outstanding player for the Crusaders, had to make way to play on the wing. Yeah, and Rob Penny also decided to put Dave Havilli at 10. So yeah, Rob Penny did say that the Havilli move at 10 is because apparently the All Blacks has called him to put Havilli at 10, and he agreed to do so. So he got a call from his former boss, Razor, to put Havilli at 10. Okay. We'll see how that goes. This will be a pretty big match and a pretty challenging match for the Crusaders as well, to see if they are truly back in form. But the Crusaders team is looking pretty strong. We'll have a look at the selections in a bit. Chiefs versus Force on Saturday afternoon, and finally Brumbies versus the Fijian Endura on Saturday night. Main event. Like I said, the Crusaders, Halfpenny is back for the team. I think the Crusaders still the front rowers. I mean, this is just brutal. George Bauer, Brody McAllister, and Fletcher Newell with Scotty Barrett at the lock. It's just brutal last week. I think against the Rebels, I think this weekend this will be one of their strengths for the game. Ethan Blackadder is starting to find his form, and Christian Leo Willie, I think this guy's so talented. He has really bright future ahead of him as well. But in the back lines we have Havilli at 10. I actually feel like Havilli's current performance for the Crusaders wouldn't even warrant him a place at 12, let alone a place at 10. And then again, the question is, who's going to be the goal kicker? Is it Drummond? Mitchell Drummond's going to be doing the goal kicking? No, Lee Halfpenny. Lee Halfpenny is going to be doing the goal kicking. That's it. Okay, so Halfpenny is going to do the goal kicking. Owen Franks, Joe Moody, George Bell coming off the bench. And then Rehana will be coming off as a reserve fly half, and Finaki to finish off the team at number 23 for the Crusaders. So yeah, this Havilli move is being called by the All Blacks, and Rob Penny obliged his former boss to put him there. Moana Pacifica this weekend will be, like I said, going to be the first game in Tonga. This will be a pretty exciting game for the Moana Pacifica, and if this was a financial success, like a good turnout, they could potentially get more games there as well against, more games there like the Fijian Enduras have, and it has become like, the Enduras has become a stronghold at home, and that, that could be a big move for Moana Pacifica as well. Now the the Hurricanes versus the Waratahs this weekend. Again, huge changes for the Hurricanes team. I think some of this is due to obviously managing the player workload. TJ Pierrenard and Jordy Barrett will be coming off the bench, and the starting at the starting position, number 12, Riley Higgins and Richard Judd will be coming off at 9. Will be starting at 9 position for the Hurricanes. Ruben Love still retains the number 15 jersey, which is one of the he's one of the most outstanding players so far in Super Rugby. And then Tyrell Lomax will be keeping that scrum dominant up front in that number 3 jersey for the Hurricanes. So this will be, I don't know how this is going to go. I think, if the Hurricanes is in trouble, TJ Perenara and Jordy Barry coming off the bench will really just put that into another gear. As long as they're not too far behind, I think the Hurricanes should be okay with their setup. The Waratahs has dropped Max Jorgensen in their match against the Hurricanes this weekend. And Will Harrison is the big change for the Waratahs, coming in at number 10, ahead of Tan Edmund. I mean, I feel like Harrison has been, I think Harrison has been a little bit better overall coming off the bench. But I think the big issue with both of these young players is their ability to make tackles. We'll just see how that goes for the Waratahs this weekend. Next up, the Blues has a massive return this weekend. Suafoa has returned to play for the Blues after a battle against cancer. Yeah, so Cameron Suafoa will be back to playing for the Blues, and really good to see him back, and he's okay. And the Blues, once again, huge, dominant 4-pack on display here. Hoskins Sotutu, Dalton Papali'i, Ohafa Tuanga Fasi, just massive. There's a debutant at the tight head proposition. Patrick Tuipulotu at the number 4. Massive up front power for the Blues. And this is a pretty brutal setup for for the Blues going into this weekend. Next up, so there was some there was an interview with Eben Etzebeth last week, and it was really interesting actually that he actually talked about how the Irish team were overconfident at the Rugby World Cup that they were going to make it to the Rugby World Cup final. After the game, he revealed that he shook hands with all the players, and about half the team, almost 7 players or so, came up to him and basically said, "We'll see you guys in the final." Like, they're so confident about the fact that they were going to make it to the Rugby World Cup final. And and he really found himself, revealed that he was really surprised that these guys were so confident that they're going to just walk over the All Blacks in the quarterfinals. And and sure enough, that overconfidence ended up hurting the Irish team. And Eben Etzebeth revealed some of the mindset the Irish team had at the Rugby World Cup and potentially the downfall for the team. So when it comes to players going overseas, Solomone Funaki has been signed to the Dragons in Wales, so he will be leaving Moana Pacifica next year. And going a little bit to the English Premiership, Leicester, the Tigers, where, Dan McKellar, is that his last name? Dan McKellar was couldn't believe that his team is currently sitting at 8th in the Premiership. You need to be top 4 to make it into the elimination rounds. So he's a little bit far off, and it's looking pretty dire for him to make it in the top 4. The Tigers, before he took over last year, I think they came 3rd, and they ended up was eliminated in the quarterfinals, but they did make it there. So this year, and I think last year Hundred Pollard was injured as well as this year. With Hundred Pollard back from injury, very, very lackluster performance from Dan McKellar. But hey, you've got Isaiah Peresi coming in. You're going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine with Isaiah Peresi added into your fold next year. Anyway, George Turner has been offered a deal to go to Japan to the Kobe Steelers to play under Dave Rennie. So he will be leaving Glasgow. And finally, Angus Bell is looking at returning to play for the Bledisloe at the Wallabies with a foot remodel surgery. So he's been having an injury on his foot multiple times now, and he's basically seen a specialist and figured that to stop him from repeatedly getting injured on the same foot, they need to do reshape his foot to reduce the weight load or however it works, to reduce the way that the weight is distributed on his foot and allow him to potentially, hopefully, stop these injuries from reoccurring. and getting him back onto the field for good. Anyway, that's news this week, guys. Let me know your thoughts. And thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. And I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys later for the reviews. Thanks for watching. Cheers.